Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford here, and as many of you know, I've been having some serious problems with my health the last couple of months, and this week I'm going to be getting a procedure done called a lumbar puncture, also commonly referred to as a spinal tap, where they're going to go in and extract some of my spinal column fluid for testing, or they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And besides the fact that the procedure itself is going to be not pleasant, the doctors have already told me that for at least 24 hours, probably more like 2 days, I'm going to be completely out of commission. So because of that, I'm obviously not going to be able to do any live streaming this week. And I know that I've been putting up, unfortunately, way too little content on the channel as of late because of my health issues. And I wanted to do something to where I could post a couple of videos to basically automatically be released while I'm out to give you guys something to watch. And it dawned on me that this last Friday's movie night with Matthew would be a perfect springboard to do a few videos on the similarities between a couple of films. Now, this is also going to be a shameless plug for movie night with Matthew, but I'm going to show you a really interesting clip in just a minute. So, for those of you that don't know, every other Friday, me and Life with Matthew watch a movie together. And the movie we watch basically varies. Most of the time we're watching pretty bad movies and just having some fun with it. And sometimes we watch just movies that are just fun to watch. Sometimes we watch actually just pretty good movies. But this last week was something a little different. Because I found out very recently that one of my favorite comedies, a 1980 film called Airplane, was actually a remake of a 1957 film called 0 Hour. Now, the interesting thing is that 0 Hour is a completely serious drama, while Airplane, obviously, a off-the-wall, zany comedy. And so how could they be the same movie? Well, it's really interesting because the plot of 0 Hour is that Air Force pilot Ted Stryker was in World War II. His final mission in the war was to lead his squadron on a bombing raid. And because of the weather, they weren't sure that they could actually make it to the target safely. And so they gave Stryker the option of aborting and going and taking a lesser valuable target, but Stryker decided to push through and take the high value target anyway. And because he pushed through, the fog was so thick that they couldn't see, and 6 of his fellow pilots crashed in this raid and died, of course. Now, in 0 Hour, this is all told at the very beginning of the film. We get the first several minutes of the film is like classic war movie stuff, and actually fairly well done, where we see the bombing raid, and we see the planes crash, and then we see Stryker recovering in the hospital, dealing with a little bit of PTSD with the fact that he felt genuinely responsible. And then we cut to about 10 years later. His life is kind of a mess. He can't get a steady job because he just keeps going, he's going through this self-persecution complex with the war. And his wife finally decides that she's had enough and decides to leave him. And so when she leaves him, she leaves a note in their home. He finds it, finds out that she's going to fly off and start life anew, and he decides to pursue her to the airport and ends up getting a ticket on the same flight as her. Now, this is where our first parallel scene from the two movies takes place. Now, in the original Airplane, while Ted Stryker is not married, his girlfriend, Elaine, is leaving him for the same reasons, that his head is still stuck in the war, he can't get out of it and all that, and she's had enough, and she's decided, she left him a note that she's leaving him. The difference is that she's an airline stewardess. She didn't just book a flight to leave, but that she was basically saying goodbye and then going on a flight where she was working. And Ted Stryker decided to follow her to the airport, and confronts her in the airport. So in 0 Hour, the first confrontation is actually aboard the airplane. Also in 0 Hour, Ted Stryker and Ellen, in Airplane her name is Elaine, but Ted and Ellen have a young son, Joey, who is also there. Joey is in Airplane, but not their son. We'll get to scenes with Joey later on. But note that there is a slight difference in dialogue because of the presence of Joey, but notice the incredible similarity of everything else that we see in this, the first confrontation of Ted Stryker and his estranged love in both 0 Hour and Airplane.
I came home early and found your note. I guess you meant for me to read it later. Elaine, I've got to talk to you. Joey can sit in my seat back there.
I just don't want to go over it anymore.
So you can see in that scene, except for the moment where Stryker tells Joey he can go sit in his seat in the back of the plane, the dialogue is identical from the time that they first see each other, and he says, I need to say your note, and then Elaine and Ellen objecting, saying that they don't want to talk about it anymore. And so in the next video in this series, we're going to deal with their conversation after this initial confrontation. Takes place about a minute or two later in the films. So until then, take care.